Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid Al-Ansari has announced that negotiations on the Gaza agreement are nearing completion, with unresolved details mainly tied to its implementation. Speaking at a press conference, he confirmed that drafts have been shared with both sides, urging an agreement to end the tragedy in Gaza. He highlighted Egypt, Qatar, and the United States' commitment to ensuring the ceasefire's success and overcoming prior obstacles. Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has criticized the current Gaza deal, calling it a surrender to Hamas. Ben-Gvir claimed his party previously blocked such deals but lost leverage as new government members now support it. He urged Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich to leave the government if the deal proceeds, proposing joint opposition. Israel's deputy foreign minister has said that Israel is hoping for good news in the next few hours on a ceasefire deal with Hamas. Sharon Haskell said that the talks are taking place with the delegations from all parties in Qatar. However, a deal has not yet been reached, and there are a number of obstacles that could still scupper the talks in Qatar.
Rightfully said in the recent hours, the ball is in Hamas's court.
U.S. President Joe Biden has said that Israel-Hamas captive and ceasefire talks are on the brink of finally coming to fruition. Biden's comments came as he delivered his final foreign policy speech as president. Biden's Middle East advisor, Brett McGurk, is in the Middle East to try and complete an elusive captive and ceasefire deal before Biden's presidency comes to an end.
Never, ever give up. So I spoke to Prime Minister Vizio yesterday. I spoke to Emir Qatar today.
White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that progress has been made in the Israel-Hamas captive and ceasefire talks. Sullivan said that he believes that the time is ripe to get a deal and to have it close. This comes as officials say that the United States and Arab mediators made significant progress overnight towards brokering a ceasefire in the Israeli-Hamas war and the release of captives held in the Gaza Strip, although a deal has not yet been reached.
We have been hammering away at week after week, month after month. And now, in the last period.
The Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has announced that Oslo will host the third meeting of the International Coalition for Supporting a Two-State Solution in the Middle East on Wednesday. This marks the third gathering of the Global Coalition for Implementing the Two-State Solution, established in September during the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Representatives from over 80 countries and organizations are expected to attend the pivotal meeting. The International Court of Justice has announced that Cuba has filed a declaration of intervention in South Korea versus Israel case regarding the application of the Genocide Convention in Gaza under Article 63 of the court's statute. According to Article 83 of the court's rules, South Africa and Israel were invited to submit written observations on the Cuban Declaration of Intervention. On December 29, 2023, South Africa filed a lawsuit against Israel on charges of genocide, and several countries joined the case, including Nicaragua, Colombia, Libya, Mexico, Palestine, Spain, Turkey, and Ireland. Two Palestinians have been killed and others were injured when the occupation warplanes bombed a gathering of civilians in a shelter camp west of Gaza City. Israel's genocidal attacks continue unabated despite calls from the United Nations Security Council for an immediate ceasefire and directives from the International Court of Justice urging measures to prevent genocide and alleviate the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. Israel's attacks on the Gaza Strip have left many local children with deep psychological scars and forced them to grapple with the devastating loss of their loved ones. The United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF said that nearly all of Gaza's 1.1 million children need mental health and psychological support amid the ongoing Israeli bombardment, displacement, and dire living conditions. The UN estimates that at least 19,000 Palestinian children have been orphaned since the war on Gaza began. In the meantime, cold weather and heavy rains are adding to the woes of the besieged Gazan people who struggle to survive in deteriorating living conditions amid Israeli attacks. Children, the elderly, and anyone with a weakened immune system are particularly vulnerable, resulting in a significant increase in illness. People can only build makeshift tents, and the lack of basic necessities exacerbates their struggles. The Palestinian Ministry of Education and Higher Education said that 12,329 students have been killed and 20,160 have been injured since the beginning of the Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip and the West Bank on October 7, 2023. The ministry reported that Israeli attacks have killed 657 teachers and administrators, injuring 3,904 and detained over 165 in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. It also stated that 324 schools, universities, and UNRWA-affiliated buildings have been bombed or vandalized in Gaza, with 128 destroyed and 57 partially damaged. Additionally, Israeli forces have stormed 109 schools and 7 universities in the West Bank. Since the start of the conflict, 788,000 students in Gaza remain unable to attend school. The Israeli occupation forces have detained at least 35 people, including former detainees and siblings in the occupied West Bank during the last 24 hours. The Detainees and Ex-Detainees Commission and the Palestinian Prisoners Society, known as the PPS, said in a joint statement that the detention operations were concentrated in the cities of Nablus, Salfit, Jenin, Tulkarm, and El Khalil, accompanied by widespread raids and abuse, assaults, and threats. The PPS and the Commission affirmed that the total number of Palestinians detained in the occupied West Bank since October the 7th has risen to over 11,000. A number of students have suffered from suffocation after the Israeli occupation forces stormed the town of Al-Khadr, south of Bethlehem. Local sources said that the occupation forces stormed Al-Khadr and were stationed in the areas of Atol and Al-Baraka in the old town and fired tear gas and sound bombs at the students, which led to a number of them suffering from suffocation amid clashes.